All right, everyone, it's time for a non-political video. We're going to be talking about ecofacts, artifacts, and human facts, actually. This is something that I thought of the other day. I was thinking about the orangutan that I saw at the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans, one of the last times that I was there. Big male orangutan throws himself into a hammock and throws a blanket over himself, quite clearly to keep warm. It was a little bit on the chilly side for that time of year when I was in New Orleans that particular time. The other time it was sweaty as hell. It's like you're sweating your balls off. But then there was a cold snap on that one particular adventure. It was a pretty fun time. I could actually dress as a pirate on Pirate Street, which makes perfect sense. And I was thinking to myself, there's a concept within anthropology called the ecofact. This is opposed to artifact. An artifact is something that has been deliberately changed for some goal or purpose. An ecofact is something that is taken from nature and utilized for a purpose, but it is not further improved. For example, a chimpanzee grabs a wooden club and, hits a cat in the face or something like that in order to eat it, knock it out and eat it. That's an ecofact. It has not specifically created a club. It has instead utilized a branch that was lying on the ground for the same purpose that we would create something more refined for. And we tend to relegate the term artifact to human culture. But I was thinking, isn't it technically a human fact when animals are, those with any degree of intelligence are intelligently utilize things that are human made? That is, let's say that I give a blanket to a chimpanzee and it quickly learns, hey, this is warm, it's soft, I can sleep on it and stuff like that, carries it around. This is technically an ecofact too. The chimpanzee did not machine anything in order to make it. It is artificially made, but it was not artificially made by the chimpanzee. And so I think that the term ecofact is outdated, actually. I think we should scrap that terminology entirely. Makes sense to use the term artifact for something specifically human machine or machine by some, potential other, life form in the universe that's intelligent. An alien probe lands. Well, that's definitely an artifact. That definitely didn't come from nature. But lower animals aren't going to understand that basic premise, so the term ecofact doesn't really make a whole lot of sense except within the archaeological context. Of course, you come upon a burial mound and you find things that clearly were used by a human, but they weren't improved or changed in some way by that human or by any other human. Okay, then that term would loosely apply. But it's kind of a meaningless term when you think about it. Anything that is utilized in any concept would technically be an artifact anyway. Just saying. Somebody gathered a bunch of shells. This is an artifact, but it's also an ecofact. There's a little bit of a blurring of the lines. See, that's why the term makes absolutely no sense. The differentiation between the two is so blurred at some times that it's really meaningless. It means absolutely nothing. Then you've got, for instance, true ecofacts, I suppose, as it would be colloquially termed. For example, chimpanzees will take little branches, they'll shove them into a termite mound, and then they'll eat it's a source of protein. They eat the termites. They're taking something and they're using a tool, but they haven't improved it in any way. They haven't quite gotten that idea. Personally, I believe that we should go out into the great ape species and teach them how to learn tools more. I think that we should skip a stage of evolution and get them to try to teach one another tool making and things like that on a hominid level. This is possible. They have the intelligence, and our species may not always be around. We could get wiped out tomorrow, but there might be others that survive. I think that it's imperative that we begin making other species more intelligent as well. Animals can be trained to do all sorts of interesting things, and sometimes they can teach one another. Octopuses, elephants, the great apes, certainly, cats and dogs, all of these species, many of which we've co-evolved with anyways. I believe in educating them, quite literally. Yes, it would be like a school for chimpanzees, among other things. It is possible to do. We've already seen it. Groups of chimpanzees have been observed teaching one another basic tool making. They understand how to use a hand axe. How is this fundamentally that different from our distant hominid ancestors? It's basically the same thing. We're capable of teaching them how to do things, and then they can teach one another. They have the ability, they have the intelligence. Orangutans can do this, gorillas can do this. I believe it's bonobos. It's common among the great apes. It would be harder with lesser animalia, as they would term it in the archaic sense, I suppose. But the term ecofact definitely needs to be retired because there's fundamentally no difference between an artifact and an ecofact anyway. Let's say that I go out, for example, I've got a wooden staff in the room. I didn't really modify it. It's just the length of wood. It's the trunk of a wood-hardened and sun-hardened, very, very strong, sturdy, and wonderful staff I have in my room. It's from what used to be a pine tree. About the only thing I did was cut off what used to be the roots. This is an ecofact, technically speaking, but it's also an artifact. A human is utilizing it, has not really changed it in any meaningful sense, but is using it as like a wizard staff. Technically, it's a human artifact, but it's also an ecofact. See, there's the blurring of the lines right there. If a chimpanzee uses a thin twig to extract termites, they're using what would be, termed an ecofact. But it's just a fucking twig. It hasn't been further modified or anything like that. There's no understanding of the premise of improving it whatsoever. I'm sure that the chimpanzees do have the intelligence to do so, if properly incentivized, by the way, by human beings. Although we might be dooming the world a second time over if we do this, because we might accidentally produce a second human race. Probably not the best of ideas in the world, considering how screwed up humans tend to be. Just saying. That's about all. Peace out.